Good morning. My name is Karen Finch, and welcome to my backyard. Welcome also to the first five from Blacksburg United Methodist Church. This morning, I'd like to think for a moment about the scripture from 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5, where Paul writes to Timothy, "I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that lived first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now, I am sure, lives in you." Since I've retired, I've been trying to learn to be a quilt maker. And the emphasis here is on the word trying, because I realized very quickly that I'm never going to be very good at it. I come from a family of quilt makers. My maternal grandmother made all of her quilts by hand, and she made stitches so delicate and so fine that there's no way I would ever come up to her standard. My mother did most of her stitching by machine, but she had a great flair for color, and she embellished a lot of her quilts with beautiful hand embroidery. So I have friends who've made beautiful, award-winning quilts. So why am I interested in making quilts when I know I will never be very good at it? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is that it allows me to feel productive when I'm not cleaning out closets. I am not cleaning out drawers or doing yard work the way so many people have been doing during this pandemic. But there's another reason. Though it seems counterintuitive because I'm in my sewing room, making quilts makes me feel connected to the outside world. Now, some of the connections are obvious. For example, I have a quilt that my mother made for me before I was born. I have a quilt that my grandmother made for Kurt and me when we got married. I've made quilts for family members and for new babies. Quilts make connections to the natural world also. Stars are a very common pattern in traditional quilts, as are flowers of various types. There's a block called flying geese. Human lives are connected and shown all in quilts in all sorts of ways also. There's a very common pattern called the log cabin. There's another one called the double wedding ring. There's even one called Drunkard's Path. But there's another reason why quilts appeal to me. And I wish I could claim this as my own, but it comes from this book called With Sacred Threads by Susan Towner Larson and Barbara Brewer Davis. And it was sent to me by a friend in Ohio when she learned about my retirement hobby. And I think it's something that's applicable for everyone, whether you're trying to learn to make a quilt or not. What quilt making crystallizes is what we come to recognize as the essence of spirituality, the connecting of our daily life experiences with our experiences of God. God is in the everydayness of our lives. Whatever we do that draws us closer to God and enables us to listen more deeply for the holy, that is a connection to the sacred. For some people, the connections come most often through nature. For some, through prayer or through children. For others, through silence or through music or reading. Possibilities are limitless. But think for a moment about quilting. Thread is essential for quilting, and it is also a symbol of connectedness. Threads are woven together into cloth, and typically many different fabrics are used in one quilt. When we piece together the fabrics, we use yards and yards of thread, and we cut away the excess thread. Many small sections of fabric and thread then eventually come together into one piece, one continuous thread, one quilt. Each section of thread or piece of fabric is essential to the whole. Thread becomes for us a reminder of individual sacredness and of the many incredible ways that all humanity is woven into one fabric of life. All moments of life are pieces of the sacred whole of our being. In our experience, God doesn't usually rush in to fix deep wounds or rescue us from life's pains. Rather, God stands with us in some mysterious way, gathering us to Himself in an amazing, grace-filled fashion over time. God enables us to weave together the seemingly loose and unconnected threads of our lives into moments of sacred wholeness, much as the quilt maker brings the pieces of fabric together into a whole covering of love. Whether real or figurative, with threads in our hand, we are able to bridge generations and remember our heritage and our hopes. Immersed in the many textures of cloth, we explore the content of our souls, the nature of our God, and the needs of our world. And for a moment of prayer, dear God, with your grace and love, help our lives become rich and meaningful as we piece together our joys and our sorrows, our questions and your answers, our successes and failures, the people and experiences which are the colors and shapes of our lives. We are longing for beauty instead of despair, new possibilities instead of chaos. Help us to keep whole the sacred threads that bind us to you and solve our problems. Amen.